The largest private room at Singularity Karaoke was a sensory assault. The sound system vibrated through the floor, and the dizzying strobe lights made it hard to focus. A thick haze of beer, cheap perfume, and sliced fruit hung in the air. A crowd of men and women, all dressed in the nines, were either belting out off-key ballads or huddled together screaming over rounds of dice and shots. Maya Rossi sat in the corner of the wraparound sofa, feeling deeply out of place. She hadn't wanted to come. It had been 5 years since graduation, and she was never that close with most of these people anyway. But her best friend, Isabella, had been relentless. Everyone's going to be there, she pleaded. Some of them are doing really well for themselves. It's called networking, Maya. Now the new dress and carefully applied makeup felt like a waste of effort. The conversations buzzing around her were a competitive sport of mortgages, new cars, and preschool waiting lists, punctuated by boasts about job titles and salaries. She had nothing to add, so she just nursed her club soda, pretending to be absorbed in the Taylor Swift video playing on the giant screen. Well, look who it is. If it isn't our class valedictorian, the beautiful Maya Rossi. A loud, boisterous voice boomed. It was Daniel Carter, the former class president. He strode over, his face flushed, a beer bottle in hand, with a few of his usual cronies trailing behind him. Maya forced a smile. Come on, Daniel, don't tease me. Tease you? I'm just stating facts. Daniel plopped down next to her, a wave of stale beer washing over her. I heard you're at a design firm now. That's great. Hey, did you know Alex Chun is absolutely killing it? Started his own company. He's the CEO now. He gestured toward a man holding court in the center of the room. Alex Chun, Maya's ex-boyfriend. They had dated for 2 years in college before a long-distance situation tore them apart after graduation. He was wearing a crisp button-down shirt, a flashy watch glinting on his wrist as he laughed with the group surrounding him. His eyes flickered in her direction. Maya instinctively looked away. Yeah, seriously, Maya, Alex is one of the city's most eligible bachelors now, another guy chimed in. You two were the campus-it couple back in the day. Such a shame. As if hearing his name, Alex excused himself and walked over, a charming smile on his face. What's all the excitement about over here, guys? Daniel shot up, clapping Alex on the shoulder and trying to steer him closer to Maya. We were just talking about you, Mr. CEO. Come on, you have to have a drink with our valedictorian. It's been years. Yeah, a drink. You guys have to link arms. Someone else shouted, and the idea caught fire, the chanting growing louder. Maya's face flushed a deep crimson. She frantically waved her hands. No, really, I don't drink much. Alex, however, played it cool. He picked up a fresh bottle of beer, handed it to Maya, and grabbed one for himself. His eyes full of amusement met hers. Come on, old friend. Catching up, just one drink. Don't leave me hanging, will you? The whistles and cheers around them intensified. The big boss has spoken. Don't be a party pooper, Maya. Guess old flames are still the best, huh? Caught between a rock and a hard place. Maya looked at the beer in Alex's hand, then at the ring of expectant faces waiting for the show. The words of refusal died in her throat. She didn't want to be a wet blanket, and she didn't want to embarrass Alex. After a moment's hesitation, she took the bottle. That's what I'm talking about. Daniel yelled, ecstatic. Link up, link up, link up. Amid the roaring of the crowd, Alex smiled and hooked his arm through hers. Maya's body went rigid, but in the overwhelming atmosphere, she passively went through with emotion, tipping her head back and taking a long swallow of the cold beer. It went down like ice, but it only made her face burn hotter. The room erupted in applause and whoops. No one noticed Lucas Miller in the far corner of the room, quietly holding up his phone. He had recorded the whole scene. The linked arm, the drink, the cheering crowd, with perfect clarity. A sly, knowing smirk spread across his face. His fingers flew across the screen, finding a contact saved as Ethan Clark, and sent the video. He added a short, "Dude, check this out. Your girl Maya knows how to party." Ethan Clark was working late in his home office, the glow of his monitor reflecting off his glasses as complex lines of code scrolled by. He rubbed his tired eyes and took a sip from a cold mug of coffee. His phone buzzed on the desk. The screen lit up with a WhatsApp notification from a name he barely recognized. Lucas Miller. Ethan frowned. He and Lucas weren't friends. They hadn't spoken since graduation. Why would he be sending him a message now? And with a popcorn emoji. A knot of unease began to form in his stomach. He set his coffee down and tapped the notification. A video began to play automatically. The thumping bass, the flashing lights, a sea of jeering faces, and then he saw Maya. She was wearing a dress he'd never seen before, her makeup perfect, her face flushed with a shade of red he couldn't decipher. Was it embarrassment or excitement? Then he saw the other man, Alex Chun, Maya's ex. He watched Alex smile as he handed Maya a beer, his arm wrapping around hers in a gesture of effortless intimacy, linking arms to drink. In the video, Maya hesitated for only a second before accepting. Surrounded by a chorus of cheers, she drank with another man, her ex, in a way that was undeniably symbolic. The clip was only 15 seconds long, but it felt like a shard of ice driving straight into Ethan's gut. He froze completely, his hand resting on a mouse tightened until his knuckles turned white. The office was silent except for the low hum of his computer's fan, but inside Ethan's head, a chaotic, soundless film was playing on a loop. The cheering crowd, Alex's smug smile, and Maya's face as she drank. Was he angry? Yes, a hot flash of rage burned in his chest, making it hard to breathe. But beneath the anger was something else, a cold, sickening wave of disappointment and disbelief. He knew Maya. She was gentle, a bit of a people-pleaser, and terrible at saying no. But was that an excuse to link arms and drink with your ex-boyfriend when you were in a committed relationship, especially in an atmosphere so thick with innuendo? Did she have any idea what that looked like, what it implied? Ethan closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to force down the bile rising in his throat. But the images from a video were seared into his memory. He picked up his phone and called her. It rang for a long time before she answered. The background was deafening. Music, laughter, a cacophony of noise. Hey, Ethan. Maya's voice was bright, a little breathless from the party. What's up? It's kind of loud in here. Ethan's voice was unearthly calm, devoid of any emotion. Is the reunion fun, huh? Oh, it's okay, super loud, you know. She seemed not to notice his tone. We're probably leaving soon. I'll be home in a bit, okay? Okay, Ethan said, pausing for a beat before asking, as if it were an afterthought. See anyone you know there? There was a split second of silence on the other end, followed by a subtle, almost imperceptible, shift in her tone. Oh, you know, just the usual crowd. Hey, it's impossible to hear in here. I'll talk to you when I get home. Bye. She hung up before he could say another word. Ethan listened to the dial tone for a moment before slowly lowering the phone. She didn't mention Alex. And she definitely didn't mention the drink. She chose to hide it. Ethan stared at the cold, logical lines of code on his screen, then down at the damning video, still open on his phone. The wave of cold disappointment began to harden, solidifying into something sharp and resolute. He picked up his phone again, went back to the chat with Lucas Miller, and typed a two-word reply. Thanks, man. Then he closed WhatsApp and opened a different application, one with a stark black interface and no icons. His expression became focused and glacial. All the emotional turmoil from moments before seemed to vanish, replaced by a razor-sharp, clinical calm. His fingers began to fly across the keyboard. Maya got home around 11:30 p.m. Her cheeks were still flushed, and she was humming to herself, clearly in a good mood. She pushed open the door and was surprised to see Ethan still at his desk. Hey, honey, you're still working? Ethan didn't turn around. His eyes remained fixed on the monitor as his fingers tapped a few keys. Yeah, just a few things to wrap up. Maya kicked off her heels, tossed her purse on the couch, and walked over to him. She wrapped her arms around his neck from behind, her voice playful. I am so exhausted. That group is insane. Oh, guess who I saw tonight? Alex Chun. He's apparently doing really well for himself. Started his own company. She brought him up as if it were a funny anecdote she'd just remembered, trying to sound as casual as possible. Ethan's hand stopped moving. He slowly swiveled his chair to face her. His expression was so calm it sent an inexplicable chill down her spine. Is that so? Ethan said, his voice flat. Anything else interesting happen? Maya's smile faltered. Her eyes darted away for a second. What else would happen? We just ate and sang. It was pretty boring, honestly. Right. Ethan nodded, as if accepting her answer. But then he reached for his phone on the desk, and Maya's heart leaped into her throat. He unlocked it, pulled up the video, and held it out in front of her. The screen's light illuminated her face, which had instantly gone pale. The loud music, the jeering crowd, and the crystal-clear, damning image of her and Alex, arms linked, drinking together. Maya's eyes widened in shock. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. It was as if someone had her in a chokehold. The pleasant buzz from the alcohol vanished, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. Who filmed that? No, Ethan, listen to me. I can't explain. She stammered, grabbing his arm. They were all cheering. I was cornered, Alex insisted. I just had one sip, I swear. I was just trying to keep the peace. Her explanation was weak and disjointed, and under Ethan's terrifyingly calm gaze, it sounded utterly pathetic. Keep the peace? Ethan's lips twisted into a smirk, completely devoid of humor. And linking arms with your ex-boyfriend was the only way to do that, Maya? Do you think I'm an idiot? Or do you just think you're so irresistible that you had no choice but to play along? His voice wasn't loud, but every word was a needle piercing her conscience. No, that's not what I meant. Maya was on the verge of tears. I honestly wasn't thinking. Everyone was watching and You weren't thinking? Ethan repeated her words slowly, nodding. Perfect. He took his phone back, closed the video, and stopped looking at her. So if no one had sent this to me, you were just going to pretend it never happened. Just like you tried to do when you walked in the door. The question left Maya speechless. She could only bite her lip, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan stood up and walked past her into the living room. Ethan, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I really was. Maya trailed after him, her voice breaking into a sob. Please don't be mad. I'll never go to one of those things again, I promise. Ethan stopped in the middle of the room, his back to her. You're on. He turned around slowly, his eyes colder and more distant than she had ever seen them. Maya, you still don't get it. Your mistake wasn't going to a party, and it wasn't having a drink. Your mistake was not knowing how to keep your distance, how to say a firm no when you're in a relationship. Your mistake was trying to hide it from me afterward. Your I was cornered, and I wasn't thinking are more disgusting to me than the drink itself. His words landed like a sledgehammer, shattering every last one of her excuses. She collapsed onto the sofa, finally covering her face and breaking into quiet, hiccuping sobs. Ethan watched her, the coldness inside him spreading. He knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. The people who cheered, the ex-boyfriend who used the situation to his advantage, and the friend who sent the video to watch the fireworks, they all needed to learn that their actions had consequences. The game was just beginning. In the days that followed, the apartment became a frozen tundra. Ethan never yelled or brought up the incident again, but he became a ghost. His silence, more punishing than any argument. They shared a bed, but he slept with his back to her, an impassable chasm between them. The suffocating coldness was worse than any fight. Maya would have preferred him to scream at her, to break something, anything, other than this chilling indifference. She knew this was far from over. She tried to apologize, to win him back with small gestures. She cooked his favorite meals and tried to start conversations, but his responses were always flat and non-committal, like punching a pillow. The warmth in his eyes was gone. He looked at her as if she were a stranger. Maya was drowning in regret and a strange sense of injustice. She knew she had screwed up, but it was a momentary lapse in judgment, fueled by peer pressure. She had zero feelings for Alex, so why couldn't Ethan just forgive her this one time? But she didn't dare argue. Ethan's words from that night were still ringing in her ears. For the first time, she was forced to see how much damage her thoughtlessness had caused. On the surface, Ethan's life returned to its normal rhythm: work, commute, overtime. But in the quiet hours, unseen by anyone, he was methodically weaving a digital web. Using his formidable skills, he moved silently through the dark corners of the internet. He found Lucas Miller's employer, a mid-level sales rep at a small firm, mapped out his social media presence, and even uncovered a discreet trail of kickbacks he was skimming from client accounts. Next was Daniel Carter, the class president. Daniel had a cushy, do-nothing job at a city agency. His real passion was networking and playing the big shot, which included taking small bribes to expedite minor permits and applications. And then there was Alex Chun. His company was real, but it wasn't the empire he pretended it was. In fact, it was teetering on the edge, desperately seeking a round of venture capital funding to stay afloat. Ethan calmly compiled the information like a machine building an arsenal. He cataloged every weakness, every vulnerability, every point of leverage. Revenge didn't require fists. Sometimes, destroying what a person valued most was far more effective. That weekend, Maya worked up the courage to try and bridge the gap. "Ethan, there's the new movie out that has great reviews. Maybe we could." Before she could finish, Ethan's phone lit up on the coffee table. It was a new WhatsApp message from Lucas Miller. Preview. "Ethan, dude, no hard feelings, just wanted to give you a heads up. Alex totally tried to get Maya's number later that night, but she shot him down. I saw it myself." Oh. The color drained from Maya's face. Her hands started to tremble. Ethan walked out of the office to get some water, saw the message, and then saw the look of pure panic on Maya's face. He knew instantly. He picked up the phone, read the full message without a change in expression, and then looked at her. "Is this true?" Maya was frantic. He did ask, but I said no. I swear I did. I shut him down right away. Isabella was there. She can tell you." How could? Watching her scramble, the last faint flicker of hope in Ethan's heart died. So there was more. If it weren't for Lucas's pathetic attempt to score points, he never would have known. "You see?" Ethan's voice was laced with exhaustion. "It always takes someone else to tell me what really happened, Maya. How many other things have you not thought about?" He slipped the phone into his pocket without looking at her again and walked back into his office. "No, Ethan. Please believe me," she called out weakly to his retreating back, tears finally streaming down her face. She knew then that some cracks, once they form, can never truly be repaired. Ethan shut the door behind him. His eyes were once again sharp and cold. Lucas Miller. It looked like he would be the first. Monday morning, Lucas Miller strolled into the sales department, sipping a large coffee and feeling pretty good about himself. The reunion had been great drama, and he'd even given the poor husband, Ethan, the inside scoop afterward. He got to stir the pot and look like a good guy at the same time, a win-win. He had just sat down and was about to waste some time scrolling through sports news when his department manager, Mr. Davis, stormed over and slammed a file folder on his desk. "Hoffman, care to explain this?" Davis's voice was low but seething with rage, causing heads to pop up from cubicles all around him. "Sam's name has been corrected to Lucas." "Oh wait, the user provided the wrong names to begin with. The user provided Sam Hoffman, Kevin Miller, and Derek Shaw. The user wants me to change the names. I'll change the names to Lucas Miller, Daniel Carter, and Alex Chun." "Okay, let's start over from Monday morning." Monday morning, Lucas Miller strolled into the sales department, sipping a large coffee and feeling pretty good about himself. The reunion had been great drama, and he'd even given the poor husband, Ethan, the inside scoop afterward. He got to stir the pot and look like a good guy at the same time, a win-win. He had just sat down and was about to waste some time scrolling through sports news when his department manager, Mr. Davis, stormed over and slammed a file folder on his desk. "Miller, care to explain this?" Davis's voice was low but seething with rage, causing heads to pop up from cubicles all around him. Lucas jumped, nearly spilling his coffee. Mr. Davis, what's wrong? What's wrong?" Davis jabbed a finger at the papers. "The contract with Veritech last month. What the hell is this cost analysis you submitted? Their legal department just sent us a formal complaint, claiming we massively inflated our prices, and they attached a full market breakdown of the raw material cost to prove it. 15% lower than what you reported." A cold dread washed over Lucas. His face went white. That's impossible, sir. That price was what?" Davis cut him off, pulling out another document, a bank statement. "And while we're at it, explain this $30,000 channel development fee. Who authorized a wire transfer to this private account? The owner of this account has absolutely no connection to Veritech." A cold sweat broke out across Lucas's forehead. His lips trembled as he stared at the proof of his kickback scheme laid out in black and white. How could they have found out in such detail? "You know the company policy, Miller. Zero tolerance for taking kickbacks in any form." Davis was practically shaking with fury now. "The client is threatening to sue, and our reputation is on the line. You're suspended, effective immediately. Hand over your laptop and prepare to meet with internal audit. You'll be lucky if we don't press charges." The eyes of his colleagues were on him, a mixture of shock, pity, and contempt. Lucas's mind went blank. The world started to spin. It was over. Everything was over. He was going to lose his job, and he might even be sued. How did they find out? It was like someone had a microscope on his life, exposing every dirty little secret. He was escorted out of the building by security, a box of his personal effects in his hands. Standing on a busy sidewalk, the bright sun felt cold. His phone vibrated. It was an email from an anonymous address. The subject line had only one word: receipt. He opened it. The body of the email was just a single sentence: learn to mind your own business next time. It'll be worse. Lucas stared at the words, his pupils shrinking. A terrifying chill shot up his spine. Ethan. It had to be Ethan. This was his revenge, just for that stupid video and that one text message. But how could he know where he worked? How could he have uncovered his kickback scheme, something so well hidden? He was just a programmer. For the first time, Lucas felt true, primal fear. He thought he was just watching a little drama for fun, but he had accidentally poked a sleeping monster. His hands shaking, he tried to call Ethan, to beg for mercy, but the call wouldn't go through. He tried to send a message on WhatsApp, but he had been blocked. Lucas looked at the anonymous crowds rushing past him on the street and felt utterly alone and terrified. For a moment of petty gossip and a few $1,000s, he had destroyed his entire career. Miles away, in his own office, Ethan Clark calmly took a sip of his coffee. On his screen was a screenshot of the internal memo announcing Lucas Miller's suspension. He closed the window without a change in expression. One down. Next up was the master of ceremonies, our former class president. Daniel Carter couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. First, Lucas Miller gets fired out of nowhere. The rumor was he got caught up in some financial trouble, and now he was completely silent in the college Facebook group when anyone asked what happened. He just mumbled something about bad luck. Then Daniel's own troubles began. He worked at a city agency, a comfortable position where he spent most of his time leveraging his title to do small favors for people in exchange for gifts. It was nothing major, just harmless graft, and he'd never had a problem until this week. This week, all hell broke loose. First, a distant cousin he'd taken money from to help get their kid into a better school district suddenly filed a formal complaint with the agency's ethics board, accusing him of taking a bribe and failing to deliver. They even included screenshots of the Venmo transactions. The amount was small, but the accusation was toxic. Then an old skeleton came rattling out of the closet. Years ago, he'd accepted a hefty consulting fee to help a developer fast-track a zoning variance. An anonymous, incredibly detailed letter about that incident landed in the inboxes of his boss and two other senior managers. Suddenly, the whispers in the hallways were about him. The looks he got from colleagues were different. His director had called him in for 2 separate meetings, each one more tense than the last. His year-end promotion was officially dead in the water. He'd be lucky to keep his job. Daniel chain-smoked in his office, feeling like a cornered animal. He couldn't figure it out. How could these old, buried secrets all surface at the exact same time? It felt coordinated, like someone was pulling strings, surgically dismantling his life. Frustrated, he scrolled through his phone and landed on the Facebook group chat from the night of the reunion. He saw Lucas's name. He thought about the party, and a ridiculous, terrifying thought entered his mind. Ethan. No way. He was just some tech nerd. How could he have the power to do this? And all because of a little harmless fun at a reunion? But the more he thought, the more it made a horrible kind of sense. Lucas was the first to go down. That was him. The two of them were the ones who had instigated the whole thing with Maya and Alex. Daniel's hands began to shake so badly that he dropped his cigarette. He snatched his phone and frantically dialed Ethan's number. After what felt like an eternity, he answered. His voice was calm. Hello? Ethan? Was it you? Daniel's voice was a strained, trembling mess of fear and rage. Lucas's job and everything happening to me. This is your doing, isn't it? There was a short pause on the other end, followed by a soft, cold chuckle that made the hair on Daniel's arm stand up. Mr. Class President, Ethan said, his tone slow and deliberate. You can't just go around making accusations. If your own hands are dirty, you can't blame someone else when you get caught. Bullshit. Daniel screamed, losing control. It was you. I know it was. Over what? A stupid party. Are you insane? A party? What about it? Ethan's voice was laced with a chilling, feigned confusion before turning sharp. All right. Actually, I should thank you and Lucas for looking out for Maya so well that night. Daniel choked, speechless with fury. Daniel? Ethan's voice dropped to an icy whisper. If I were you, I'd be spending my energy figuring out what to tell the ethics board about your consulting fees. Stop wasting your time making phone calls. The line went dead. Daniel stared at his phone, a cold sweat covering his entire body. It was him. It was really him. For a moment of stupid, meaningless fun, he had made an enemy of a monster. He was finished. He sank into his chair, his face ashen, consumed by a tidal wave of regret and terror. Across town, Ethan hung up the phone, his expression unchanged. He glanced at his computer monitor, which displayed a detailed perspective for the venture capital funding that Alex Chen's company was trying to secure. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Your turn, Mr. CEO. The atmosphere at home had become unbearable. Maya felt like she was losing her mind. Ethan still came home every night, but he treated her like a piece of furniture. He would eat the food she made without comment, wear the clothes she washed without a word of thanks. This robotic, detached politeness was a form of torture far worse than any argument. She had tried everything, apologizing, pleading, begging him to just talk to her, but it was like trying to melt a glacier with a match. His heart was completely frozen. Then the news from the outside world started to trickle in, turning her anxiety into sheer terror. She heard through the grapevine that Lucas Miller had been fired and was facing a lawsuit from his company. Then she heard from Isabella that Daniel Carter was suspended from his job, under investigation for ethics violations. She wasn't stupid. She knew with a certainty that made her sick to her stomach that Ethan was behind it all. She couldn't believe it. The quiet, gentle, sometimes nerdy man she loved was capable of such cold, calculated destruction. Was he really going to ruin lives over her one stupid mistake? Fear and guilt were strangling her. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. That night, she finally confronted him. She stood in the doorway of his office, her eyes red and swollen. Ethan, we need to talk. Please. I know I was wrong. I know. What do you want me to do to make you forgive me? Lucas and Daniel. Was that you? Ethan looked up from his screen, his expression blank. He cut her off. What about them? They got in trouble because of their own actions. What does that have to do with me? He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, as if he were truly just an innocent bystander. Seeing his cold denial, Maya's last shred of hope crumbled. She slid to the floor, the tears she'd been holding back bursting forth. It's my fault. It's all my fault. If it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have. Ethan, please, just be mad at me. Punish me. Do whatever you want. But stop this. I'm scared. I'm so scared. She was sobbing uncontrollably, her body shaking. Ethan looked down at her, and for the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed his face. It wasn't pity. It was a dark, complex sadness mixed with contempt. You're scared now? He asked softly. When you're linking arms with him, surrounded by your cheering friends, were you scared then? Did you think for 1 second about the consequences? Maya, have you ever considered what might have happened if it wasn't me? If another man, someone with a worse temper and more violent tendencies, had received that video? Have you ever thought that if I didn't have the ability to find out the truth, I might have done something irreversible out of sheer anger and misunderstanding? I wasn't thinking could have destroyed more than just our relationship. His words were like a chisel, chipping away the self-pitying shell she had built around herself and forcing her to confront the terrifying potential of her own recklessness. She looked up, the color draining from her face, her eyes wide with a dawning, horrified understanding. She hadn't thought of any of that. She had just thought it was a small, meaningless thing. Seeing her complete and utter breakdown, some of the tightness in Ethan's chest seemed to loosen, but it was replaced by a profound weariness. He stepped around her and walked out of the office. Pull yourself together. His voice was still cold, but perhaps a fraction less absolute. Maya sat paralyzed on the cold floor, watching him leave. Her sobs now, fueled by a new, deeper shame. For the first time, she wasn't just sorry she got caught. She was truly, devastatingly sorry for what she had done. Out on the balcony, Ethan lit a cigarette, something he hadn't done in a long time. He watched the city lights twinkle in the darkness. Just one more to go. Alex Chen was on top of the world. The crucial round of venture capital funding for his company was in the final stages of negotiation. Once that money came through, his business would skyrocket. He could already picture his face on the cover of Chicago business magazine's 30 Under 30. That little incident at the reunion was a distant memory. Maya, just a pretty ex-girlfriend. Flirting with her had been a fun way to prove he still had it. Her boyfriend? Some faceless programmer. What was he going to do? He was even a little proud of the fact that the pictures from that night probably caused some drama for them. A little guy like that didn't stand a chance against him. Then, the night before the final investment meeting, his world imploded. An anonymous email was sent simultaneously to the entire board of the venture capital firm and to every employee at Alex's company. The email contained a meticulously detailed breakdown of his company's fraudulent financials from the last 3 years, inflated revenues, hidden debts, exaggerated patents. Every number was precise, every claim backed by unshakable data. Even more damning, the email included audio files, crystal clear recordings of Alex in internal meetings, ordering his CFO to creatively optimize their quarterly reports and boasting to his team about the lies he was feeding the investors. The VC firm was apoplectic. They immediately canceled the next day's meeting and announced a full-scale forensic audit of Alex's company. When the news hit, Alex felt like he'd been struck by lightning. How? Who did this? Who? He screamed, sweeping everything off his desk in a blind rage. The financial data, the audio recordings, they were his deepest secrets, buried on a secure server behind multiple firewalls and layers of encryption. How could anyone have gotten to them? His phone began to ring off the hook. Business partners demanding answers, suppliers calling in their debts, his bank raising flags on his business loans. In the span of a few hours, the entire empire he had built on a foundation of lies crumbled to dust. He was now facing a massive lawsuit from the investors for fraud. Alex collapsed into his expensive office chair, his shirt soaked with sweat. He frantically ran through his list of enemies and competitors, but no one he knew had the skill or the motive to execute such a perfect, devastating attack. Just then, his personal cell phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. It contained a single, simple sentence. How'd that drink taste? Boom. It was as if a bolt of lightning had shot through his brain. Ethan, the programmer. Maya's boyfriend. It was him. How was that even possible? A wave of unbelievable, gut-wrenching terror washed over him. For a moment of arrogant, meaningless flirtation, he had provoked a phantom, a ghost in a machine who could reach through walls and tear his entire world apart. He fumbled with his phone, trying to call the number back to beg, to plead, but it was disconnected. He was finished, utterly and completely finished. Alex Chin closed his eyes in despair, the image of cold steel handcuffs already forming in his mind. In another part of the city, Ethan Clark deleted the sent text and wiped his operational logs, leaving no trace. He shut down his computer and stood up. Everyone who needed to pay a price had now paid it. The show was over. A month passed. Lucas Miller, found guilty of embezzlement, had to drain his savings to pay back the company and was left with a criminal record that made him unemployable. He quietly moved back to his parents' house in another state. Daniel Carter received a severe, formal reprimand from his agency. He was demoted, his career permanently stalled. He vanished from the college social scene, never to organize a reunion again. Alex Chin's fate was the worst. The VC firm sued him for fraud, his company was liquidated, and facing overwhelming evidence of financial crimes, he was now awaiting a prison sentence. The once lively college Facebook group fell silent. The handful of others who had been cheering that night were gripped by a quiet, retroactive fear, though none of them dared to speak of it. At home, Maya had changed. She quit her job to take some time for herself. The crying and pleading had stopped, replaced by a deep and sober self-reflection. She took over all the household chores with a quiet diligence, and even started learning to cook. She became acutely aware of Ethan's moods, giving him space when he needed it. She would leave a fresh cup of tea on his desk when he worked late and have a hot shower ready for him when he seemed tired. She was trying in her own clumsy and humbled way to atone. Ethan saw the changes. The ice around his heart had begun to thaw, just a little. He knew Maya wasn't a bad person, just immature and easily swayed. This brutal, life-altering lesson had, it seemed, forced her to finally grow up. One evening, Ethan came home from work to find a simple, home-cooked meal on the table. Maya stood by nervously, waiting for the verdict. He washed his hands, sat down, and took a bite. "It's salty," he said. Maya's eyes immediately welled up with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. It was the first piece of feedback, the first real interaction about something she'd done in over a month. Okay, I'll use less next time, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan let out a long, slow sigh and put down his fork. Sit down. Let's eat. Maya quickly sat, eating her food in silence, stealing glances at him every few moments. After dinner, instead of retreating to his office, Ethan sat on the couch. Maya hesitated, then sat down on the other end, leaving a careful distance between them. After a long silence, Ethan finally spoke, his voice a little hoarse. It's over now. Fresh tears streamed down Maya's face. She nodded furiously. I know. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Maya, Ethan said, turning to look at her, some mistakes you only get to make once. You've seen my boundaries. I'll never do it again, I swear. I will never, ever do anything like that again. She promised, shaking her head. From now on, you stay away from that kind of drama and those kinds of people, and you need to think, Ethan said. His tone was still stern, but the razor's edge was gone. I will. I promise, she said, clinging to his words as if they were a lifeline. Ethan looked at her tear-streaked face and, after a moment, reached out and awkwardly patted her on the back. Stop crying. It's not a good look. That was all it took. Maya collapsed into his arms and began to sob, letting out all the fear, guilt, and regret of the past month. Ethan didn't push her away. He just let her cry. He knew the crack in their relationship was still there. It would take a long, long time to heal. Trust, once shattered, is much harder to rebuild than to destroy. But she had learned her lesson, and he, in his own way, had defended his honor and purged the poison from their lives. Maybe, just maybe, they could give each other a second chance. Outside, the city lights burned brightly, full of temptations and traps. But inside this small apartment, after a devastating storm, a fragile peace had begun to settle. The road ahead was long, but after being forged in such a fire, they had both been changed forever.